If you are sitting at your desk right now in Canada, 58 years old, 62, 64, wondering whether this is the year, I need to show you something. Because the numbers in 2026 are different from any year before. You might be feeling a deep sense of uncertainty about the future of your finances, constantly calculating and recalculating your projections, wondering if you have saved enough, wondering if the government is going to change the rules right before you cross the finish line, and feeling completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of conflicting advice out there. I completely understand that anxiety, and I want you to know that you are not alone in feeling this way, which is exactly why we need to talk about the very specific, verified, and highly favorable conditions aligning perfectly in the year 2026. Before we dive deep into the technical breakdown of exactly why this specific year is the ultimate golden window for Canadian retirees, I want you to do something very simple for me. Drop a comment right now. What year are you planning to retire? Just the number. Seriously? Scroll down and type the 4 digits of the year you are targeting, because putting it in writing is the first deliberate micro-commitment you can make toward actually taking control of your financial destiny, and it helps you visualize that finish line. When you look at the landscape of Canadian retirement planning, there is a tremendous amount of fear of missing out on temporary legislative windows, a perfectly natural greed for massive tax savings, and a desperate desire for relief from the constant legislative uncertainty that seems to plague every single federal budget announcement. People are terrified of experiencing a catastrophic loss of their hard-earned wealth due to invisible tax changes or sudden policy shifts that leave their portfolios depressed and their retirement dreams shattered. But 2026 offers a unique convergence of 7 distinct factors that create an unprecedented opportunity for wealth amplification and tax minimization. The first reason 2026 is the absolute best year to retire in Canada comes down to the optimization of the 14% tax rate at the lowest income bracket, which, when combined with the precise mechanics of the T1032 pension income split, allows couples to radically reduce their overall household tax burden in a way that simply was not as efficient in previous years. When you calculate your projected income and deliberately split your eligible pension income using the T1032 form, you are effectively doubling the amount of money you can pull out of your registered accounts at that highly favorable foundational tax rate, shielding thousands of dollars from the Canada Revenue Agency and keeping that money permanently in your own pocket where it belongs. You must talk to your partner and run these numbers together, because the amplification of your net income through this specific tax maneuvering in 2026 is nothing short of extraordinary. Moving seamlessly into the second reason, we must deeply analyze the peak optimization of the basic personal amount, which has been steadily increasing and reaches a critical plateau of efficiency in 2026, providing an invisible but highly lucrative shield against early retirement taxes. The basic personal amount is the absolute foundation of your tax planning, the exact dollar amount you are allowed to earn before the government takes a single cent. And by timing your retirement to align with the maximized basic personal amount in 2026, you are guaranteeing that a larger portion of your initial retirement withdrawals, whether from your RRSP or your unregistered accounts, remains completely untouched by taxation. If you were to wait until 2027 or beyond, you risk facing potential inflationary adjustments or legislative freezes that could erode the real purchasing power of this foundational tax credit, which is why you must check your projected withdrawal rates against the 2026 basic personal amount to fully understand the massive financial advantage you possess right now. The third reason is perhaps the most exciting for diligent savers, and it revolves around the monumental milestone of the TFSA Cumulative Contribution Room, which, for those who have been eligible since the program's inception in 2009 and have never contributed, or for those who have maximized it every single year, will surpass a staggering $109,000 in 2026. This is not just a number. It is a permanent, verified, tax-free fortress that allows you to shelter a massive amount of capital, generating dividends, interest, and capital gains that the government can never touch. And when you transition into retirement in 2026, having access to over $109,000 of purely tax-free liquidity provides an unparalleled level of financial security and flexibility. You can use this enormous TFSA cumulative contribution room to strategically manage your taxable income, pulling from your TFSA when you need extra cash for a vacation or a medical expense without triggering any additional taxes or pushing yourself into a higher tax bracket, completely bypassing any risk to your other income-tested benefits. The fourth reason you need to seriously consider 2026 as your retirement year is the incredibly vital necessity of locking in the certainty of the 50% capital gains inclusion rate. We all know that the federal government is constantly looking for new revenue streams, and there is a pervasive, terrifying uncertainty surrounding future budgets and the persistent rumors that the capital gains inclusion rate could be increased, which would be absolutely devastating for anyone planning to sell a secondary property, a cottage, or a massive non-registered portfolio to fund their retirement. By executing your retirement strategy and realizing those necessary capital gains in 2026, you are operating under the verified known entity of the 50% capital gains inclusion rate, protecting your wealth from the arbitrary and depressed valuations that would result from a sudden, unexpected tax hike in 2027 or 2028. You cannot afford to be surprised by a greedy legislative change that steals your equity, so you must consult with your financial advisor, run the projections, and deliberately choose to lock in your gains while the environment remains favorable. The fifth reason is an entirely new, invisible income stream that many prospective retirees are completely ignoring, and that is the full, mature integration of the Canadian Dental Care Plan into the retirement landscape by 2026. Healthcare costs, and specifically dental costs, are one of the most unpredictable and terrifying expenses for retirees, often forcing them to drain their savings unexpectedly, but by 2026, the phased rollout of the Canadian Dental Care Plan will be fully operational for eligible seniors, providing a massive reduction in out-of-pocket expenses for cleanings, extractions, dentures, and restorative work. This is essentially thousands of dollars of invisible, untaxed income added directly to your bottom line every single year, alleviating a massive psychological and financial burden, and making the math of a 2026 retirement look significantly more viable and secure than it did just a few years ago. The sixth reason requires a slightly more technical understanding of wealth extraction, and it involves the highly strategic implementation of the RRSP meltdown strategy during potential market downturns or periods of economic stagnation that many economists are forecasting leading up to 2026. The RRSP meltdown strategy is a deliberate, calculated method of rapidly draining your heavily taxed registered retirement savings plan in your early retirement years, intentionally paying the tax at your current marginal rate, and shifting that capital into your tax-free savings account, or using it to fund your lifestyle before you are forced to take minimum retirement income fund withdrawals at age 71. By executing this RRSP meltdown strategy, starting in 2026, you are aggressively reducing the overall size of your registered accounts, which is absolutely critical because it prevents you from being forced to withdraw massive, highly taxed amounts later in life that could push you dangerously close to the dreaded OAS clawback threshold. The OAS clawback threshold is the silent killer of Canadian retirement dreams, a punitive tax that strips away your old age security benefits if your income is deemed too high. And by starting your RRSP meltdown in 2026, you are deliberately smoothing out your lifetime tax curve, ensuring that you never hit that devastating OAS clawback threshold, and that you keep every single dollar of government benefits you are entitled to receive. The seventh and final reason that 2026 is the undisputed champion of retirement years is the sheer, undeniable power of the compound effect of early action. When you combine the optimization of the 14% tax bracket, the peaking of the basic personal amount, the massive $109,000 TFSA cumulative contribution room, the verified certainty of the 50% capital gains inclusion rate, the invisible income of the Canadian Dental Care Plan, and the protective power of the RRSP meltdown strategy to avoid the OAS clawback threshold, you create a financial amplification effect that simply cannot be replicated if you wait until 2027. Every single year you delay, you are leaving money on the table, subjecting yourself to further legislative uncertainty, and sacrificing the most valuable asset you have, which is your time, your health, and your freedom to enjoy the wealth you have spent decades building. To make sure you are fully prepared to take advantage of this golden window, I want you to mentally run through a strict action checklist right now. You must calculate your exact monthly expenses, check your current RRSP and TFSA balances, talk to your spouse about your shared vision, apply for your CPP and OAS exactly 6 months before you want them to start, run a comprehensive tax projection using the 2026 brackets, consult a fee-only fiduciary planner to verify your math, and finally, hit that retirement button with absolute confidence. Let me ground all of this heavy technical data in a very real, very relatable story about a woman named Nadia, a 63-year-old project manager who was sitting exactly where you are right now, staring at her spreadsheets, feeling deeply depressed about her high-stress job, and paralyzed by the uncertainty of whether she should retire in 2026, or push through one more grueling year to retire in 2027. Nadia had built a respectable nest egg, a solid RRSP, a nearly maximized TFSA, and she was terrified of the OAS clawback threshold because she knew her forced RRIF withdrawals at age 71 were going to be substantial. She came to us completely stressed out, assuming that working one more year and suffering through 12 more months of corporate burnout was the safe, responsible thing to do. But when we sat down and actually ran the numbers, comparing a 2026 exit versus a 2027 exit, she was absolutely surprised and overwhelmed by what the data revealed. We showed Nadia that by retiring in 2026, she could immediately initiate a targeted RRSP meltdown strategy, withdrawing just enough to fill her lowest tax brackets and utilizing the maximized basic personal amount, while simultaneously taking advantage of her massive TFSA cumulative contribution room to shelter the excess capital. If she waited until 2027, not only would she suffer another year of immense stress, but she would miss the optimal window to drain her RRSP at the most favorable tax rates, pushing her future minimum withdrawals dangerously high and guaranteeing she would hit the OAS clawback threshold in her late 70s. Furthermore, Nadia owned a small rental condo that had appreciated significantly, and she was terrified of the rumors surrounding potential changes to the capital gains inclusion rate. By decisively choosing to sell that property and retire in 2026, she locked in the absolute certainty of the 50% capital gains inclusion rate, completely eliminating the anxiety of a future budget suddenly confiscating a larger percentage of her lifelong investment. When we tallied up the total impact of optimizing her tax brackets, maximizing her basic personal amount, utilizing the full power of her TFSA, securing the known capital gains rate, and aggressively avoiding the future OAS clawback threshold through a perfectly timed RRSP meltdown strategy, the climax of our analysis revealed a staggering, life-changing number. By simply having the courage to act immediately and retire in 2026, rather than delaying out of fear, Nadia secured exactly $49,100 in lifetime tax savings. Let me repeat that, because it is the most important number you will hear today. Nadia saved $49,100 that would have otherwise been permanently lost to the Canada Revenue Agency, simply by understanding the mechanics of the 2026 window and choosing to take deliberate action instead of passively waiting. The emotional transformation in Nadia was instantaneous. The heavy burden of uncertainty and the depressed feeling of being trapped in her job vanished, replaced immediately by a profound sense of relief, empowerment, and the thrilling realization that she was financially savvy enough to beat the system and reclaim her freedom a full year earlier than she thought possible. You have to understand that the rules of the game are constantly shifting. And while some factors like the TFSA limits are permanent fixtures of the landscape, other elements like tax brackets, capital gains inclusion rates, and the specific thresholds for the OAS clawback are highly vulnerable to temporary political whims and future legislative changes. You cannot base your entire life's work and your future security on the hope that the government will continue to be generous in 2027, 2028, or beyond, because history has shown us time and time again that when the government needs money, they will change the invisible rules of the game, and the unprepared retiree will be the one who suffers the loss. 2026 is a verified, mathematically proven anomaly, a specific moment in time where the rules are exceptionally favorable for those who are willing to calculate their position, check their assumptions, talk to professionals, apply the right strategies, run the numbers, consult the experts, and hit their targets with precision. Do not let the fear of missing out on a few extra dollars of salary blind you to the massive compounding tax advantages and the profound quality of life improvements that are waiting for you right now if you choose to optimize your exit. You have worked far too hard for far too many decades to leave tens of thousands of dollars on the table just because you were too hesitant to pull the trigger when the conditions were perfect. If you want to experience the exact same relief and financial empowerment that Nadia felt, if you want to stop guessing and start knowing exactly how these 7 factors apply to your specific portfolio, your specific tax situation, and your specific retirement dreams, then you need to take the next logical step right now. We have developed a highly advanced, incredibly comprehensive AI digital product and research guide that is specifically designed to act as your ultimate preparation tool, a system that takes all of these complex variables, the RRSP meltdown strategy, the TFSA cumulative contribution room, the capital gains inclusion rate, the OAS clawback threshold, the basic personal amount, and the T1032 pension income split, and customizes them to your exact numbers. This is not just a generic spreadsheet. It is a dynamic, powerful, AI-driven analysis tool that will show you exactly how much money you are leaving on the table if you delay, and exactly how to structure your 2026 exit to maximize every single dollar of your wealth. So, before you click away, before you go back to stressing over your finances, remember to drop a comment right now with the year you are planning to retire, just the number, and then click the link in the description to secure your access to our AI digital preparation guide, because the window of opportunity for 2026 is closing fast, and your financial freedom is too important to leave to chance.